Welcome to the Regal Talks Podcast. Melanin, a simple skin pigment or the key to unlocking hidden spiritual knowledge. Today we're diving into some mind-bending theories that challenge everything we think we know about human history, consciousness, and the nature of reality itself.
Wow, that's quite an opening. You've certainly piqued my curiosity. What kind of theories are we talking about here?
Well, we're exploring some fascinating alternative perspectives on history, spirituality, and hidden knowledge. One of the central ideas is that melanin might be more than just a pigment. It could have deeper metaphysical properties linked to spiritual power and ancient wisdom.
Hmm, that's an intriguing concept. How does this tie into broader ideas about history and spirituality?
So the theory goes that there's a hidden history of humanity that's been suppressed or forgotten. This includes the idea that ancient civilizations, particularly in Africa, had advanced spiritual and scientific knowledge that's been lost or deliberately hidden. For example, our guest drew connections between ancient Egyptian concepts and modern pop culture, suggesting that Hollywood movies might be encoding secret messages about this hidden history.
That's fascinating. Can you give us a specific example of how this might work?
Sure thing. Take the Star Wars films, for instance. Our guest suggested that George Lucas might have been encoding deeper truths about human history and spirituality into his movies. They interpreted the Force as a metaphor for melanin and the Jedi as representatives of an ancient, suppressed lineage of spiritual warriors. It's a pretty radical reinterpretation of a familiar story.
Wow, that's certainly a unique perspective. It makes you wonder how much hidden meaning might be lurking in the media we consume every day. But how seriously should we take these kinds of alternative interpretations?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? On one hand, these theories are fascinating and can spark some really interesting discussions. They challenge us to think outside the box and question our assumptions about history and reality. On the other hand, many of these claims aren't supported by mainstream scientific evidence or expert consensus.
Right, so it's important to approach these ideas with a critical eye. But I'm curious, why do you think these alternative narratives are so appealing to many people?
That's a great question. I think there are a few factors at play. First, there's the allure of secret knowledge, the idea that there are hidden truths about the world that only a select few understand. It's like being let in on a cosmic secret. Second, these narratives often provide a sense of meaning and coherence that people might find lacking in mainstream explanations of history and reality.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. It's human nature to seek patterns and meaning in the world around us.
Exactly. And in a complex and often chaotic world, the idea that there are hidden truths that can explain everything is very attractive. It's like having a key that unlocks the mysteries of the universe. But, and this is important, we have to be careful not to let that desire for meaning override our critical thinking skills.
So, how do we strike that balance? How can we engage with these alternative ideas without falling into uncritical belief?
Well, I think the key is to maintain a stance of open minded skepticism. We can explore these ideas and find them intellectually stimulating without necessarily accepting them as literal truth. It's about expanding our intellectual horizons while still maintaining a grounding in evidence and reason.
That's a great point. And I suppose even if we don't accept these theories wholesale, engaging with them can still be a valuable exercise in critical thinking, right?
Absolutely. It's like mental gymnastics, like stretching our minds to consider new possibilities and different ways of interpreting the world around us. And it's worth remembering that many ideas that were once considered fringe or alternative have eventually found their way into mainstream acceptance. The history of science is full of examples of radical ideas that were initially dismissed but later proved to be groundbreaking.
Oh, that's an excellent point. Can you give us an example of a once fringe idea that's now accepted?
Sure thing. Take the theory of plate tectonics, for instance. When Alfred Wegener first proposed the idea of continental drift in the early 20th century, he was ridiculed by the scientific community. It took decades for the evidence to accumulate and for the theory to gain acceptance. Now, it's a fundamental principle in geology,
Wow, I had no idea. That really puts things in perspective.
right? It's a reminder of why it's important to keep an open mind, even to ideas that might seem outlandish at first. At the same time, we need to apply rigorous standards of evidence and critical thinking to evaluate these claims. It's a delicate balance.
So, bringing it back to our discussion about melanin and hidden knowledge, how might we apply this balanced approach?
Great question. I think we can approach it like this. We can acknowledge that melanin is a fascinating substance with properties we're still discovering. For example, did you know that melanin has been found to have conductive properties and is being studied for potential use in bioelectronics? That's pretty cool, right?
Oh, wow, I had no idea. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's cutting edge research, so we can appreciate the scientific mysteries surrounding melanin without necessarily jumping to conclusions about its spiritual properties. We can explore the idea of hidden knowledge in ancient cultures while still critically examining the evidence for specific claims.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about staying curious and open to new ideas while still maintaining a critical perspective.
Exactly. And I think one of the most valuable aspects of exploring these alternative perspectives is that it encourages us to question our assumptions and look at familiar things in new ways. Even if we don't accept all the specific claims, the process of engaging with these ideas can be intellectually stimulating and eye opening.
Well said. It's like we're expanding our mental toolkit, giving ourselves new ways to think about and interpret the world around us.
Absolutely. And in a world that's becoming increasingly complex and interconnected, having that kind of mental flexibility and openness to different perspectives is incredibly valuable. It's not about believing everything we hear, but about being willing to consider new ideas and challenge our own preconceptions.
Hmm, that's a really powerful idea. Do you think this kind of thinking could have broader implications for society?
Oh, absolutely. I think cultivating this kind of open minded critical thinking could have huge benefits for society. Imagine if we approached political debates or social issues with this same spirit of curiosity and willingness to consider alternative perspectives. We might find it easier to bridge divides and come up with innovative solutions to complex problems.
That's an exciting thought. It's like we're not just talking about esoteric theories anymore, but about a whole new way of engaging with the world.
Exactly. And that's really what we aim for here at Regal Talks, to spark curiosity, encourage critical thinking, and open up new avenues of exploration for our audience. Whether or not you buy into the specific theories we've discussed today, I hope it's encouraged you to look at the world around you with fresh eyes and an open mind.
Well, I think you've certainly achieved that goal today. This has been a fascinating discussion.
Thanks, I'm glad you found it interesting. As we wrap up, I think it's worth emphasizing that while these alternative narratives can be fascinating and thought provoking, it's important to approach them with a critical eye. We should be willing to explore new ideas, but also be ready to question and fact check claims that don't stand up to scrutiny.
That's a great summary. It's been quite a journey through hidden histories and esoteric knowledge. I think our listeners will have a lot to ponder after this episode.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about, sparking that curiosity and encouraging people to think deeply about the world around them. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep thinking critically. The world is full of mysteries waiting to be unraveled, but it's up to us to approach them with both imagination and discernment.